It was supposed to be just another evening. The kind where the orange glow of the streetlights barely pierced the tension hanging over Eastbrook Heights, a forgotten neighborhood of cracked pavement and invisible lives. 17-year-old Jamal Carter was walking home from his part-time job at the library, headphones in, hoodie up, carrying 2 law books he borrowed for his scholarship essay. But to Officer Thomas Briggs, he looked like a suspect. One wrong look, one sudden move, one assumption. The sirens wailed, the tires screeched, and Jamal's world came crashing down in a flood of flashing blue and white. The phrase rang out like a death sentence. Briggs stepped out of the cruiser, hand already on his weapon. "Hands where I can see 'em." Jamal froze, books hitting the concrete. A neighbor stepped outside. "That's Miss Carter's boy." But Briggs didn't listen. Backup arrived. Jamal was on the ground. No Miranda rights, no explanation, just the phrase, "He fits the description." They didn't even say what crime had been committed. 2 weeks later, the courtroom was sterile and silent, except for one sound. A chuckle, low and smug. Officer Briggs sat in uniform, arms folded, watching Jamal stand before the judge. The charge? Resisting arrest. Evidence? Body cam footage mysteriously malfunctioned. The judge glanced at Jamal. "You're lucky this wasn't worse." Briggs leaned over to a colleague and whispered something. They laughed again. Jamal looked up, silent, burning. He would remember that laugh forever. Jamal was sentenced to 6 months of probation. His school rescinded his internship. His college application was paused. Even his guidance counselor gave up on him. But Jamal didn't give up. He read every legal text he could find during those long nights. He watched court hearings online, studied law in secret. The system had tried to bury him. So he started building his way out, one statute, one precedent, one case at a time. College was not easy. He worked janitorial shifts and stocked shelves overnight. Law school was even harder. But with every rejection letter, Jamal just doubled down. He graduated top of his class, clerking for a civil rights judge in D.C., interning on wrongful conviction cases. And still, he never spoke of that night. Not even once. Not until the job offer came. 10 years later, the city of Eastbrook had a new district attorney. He was young, brilliant, unbought, unbossed. The media called him a rising star. But to the community, he was something more. He was a symbol. The kid who beat the system and returned to fix it. And on his first day in office, the press lined the courthouse steps. But inside the courtroom, another face waited. Older now, still smug. Officer Thomas Briggs. Briggs strutted into the DA's office, holding a file. He thought this was just another new politician, another suit he could charm. He didn't recognize Jamal at first. The beard, the tailored suit, the calm authority, and then the nameplate on the desk. District Attorney Jamal Carter. Briggs paused. The color drained from his face. Jamal smiled, just slightly. "Officer Briggs," he said, "have a seat. We need to talk." Jamal had done his homework. Before taking office, he quietly requested all internal affairs records sealed by the previous DA. Briggs' name appeared in too many of them. Unreported stops, complaints filed and buried. 3 excessive force incidents in 1 year. One involved a young Latino boy with a fractured rib. The records had been ignored. Now they weren't. The city press called it a bombshell. District Attorney reopens internal affairs files on veteran officer. Jamal didn't have to stretch the truth. The truth was heavy enough. Pattern of misconduct. Systemic cover-ups. Briggs denied it all. He tried to retaliate, filed a grievance. But this time, the courtroom wasn't laughing. And Jamal wasn't a boy anymore. When Briggs was brought in for disciplinary hearings, the courtroom was packed. The irony was not lost on anyone. Same judge, same room. But this time, Jamal sat in the prosecutor's chair. And Briggs, he sat on the defense bench. As Jamal read out the charges, he paused. "I know this courtroom," he said. "I stood here once before. Same officer, same smirk." Now the smirk was gone. Briggs tried to negotiate, offered apologies, asked for mercy. Jamal listened. But justice isn't mercy. Justice is truth. And the truth was, Briggs had mocked the law for years. Now the law stared back. After Briggs' suspension and forced retirement, reporters swarmed Jamal. "How does it feel?" they asked. Jamal didn't answer. He walked past them, past the hallway where he once sat in handcuffs. He paused only once, where Briggs had laughed. He stood there in silence, then turned and walked into his office. That night, Jamal held a town hall. He spoke to kids from Eastbrook. He told them about books, about justice, about never giving up. But he never said Briggs' name, because this story was never about revenge. It was about reclamation. One man, one broken boy, who rebuilt himself brick by brick, until he became the law. Jamal's office was quiet that morning, except for the sound of thumbtacks against corkboard. He was building something, a wall filled with names, not of enemies, but of victims. Names from sealed cases, buried complaints, old files ignored by men like Briggs. Each name had a story. Each name deserved justice. This wasn't about one bad cop. This was about a system built to silence the powerless. Jamal was ready to give them voice. The department closed ranks. Union reps barked. Old colleagues whispered, "He's coming after us." They weren't wrong. Jamal launched an independent civil rights unit. All officers with more than 5 citizen complaints reviewed. All internal affairs findings audited. The shield of silence that protected misconduct started to fracture, and Jamal didn't blink. At the old courthouse annex, Jamal found a forgotten records room. Boxes thick with dust and silence. One box changed everything. Inside, Polaroids, statements, a journal belonging to a mother who'd begged for someone to listen. Her son, 13, had been assaulted during a stop and frisk. The officer, Briggs. The case, labeled unsubstantiated. Jamal stared at the journal. He felt the past pressing against his chest. He reopened the file. Detective Raymond Ellis was nearing retirement when he knocked on Jamal's door. "I've seen enough," he said. Ellis handed over a thumb drive. Secret audio. Briggs caught mocking arrests, laughing about planting suspicion. "He thinks he's untouchable," Ellis whispered. He paused before leaving. "Not anymore." Jamal got the call late. A small fire in the records annex. Arson. No injuries, but dozens of files destroyed. The investigation stalled. But Jamal knew. It was a warning. From someone with something to lose. He didn't flinch. He requested federal oversight and doubled the scope of his investigation. At a police gala, Jamal made an unannounced appearance. The room went cold. Eyes watched him like a threat. Whispers swirled. "He's not one of us." One officer muttered too loudly, "He doesn't belong here." Jamal turned. "I was told that before," he said, right before someone laughed in my face. "He doesn't laugh anymore." Then he walked out. No security. No fear. One morning, Jamal found an envelope slipped under his office door. Inside, an old photo of her son. A handwritten note. "You kept your promise. Thank you for seeing him." It was the mother from the journal. She had died years ago, but her sister had followed Jamal's rise. He framed the photo, hung it beside his law degree. A reminder. This job was never about him. Jamal filed charges against not just Briggs, but a network of officers who enabled abuse. The trial was televised. One officer flipped on the stand, testified that Briggs once told him, "The law don't matter if you control the narrative." Jamal stood. Read Briggs' own past statements into the record. The jury returned with a verdict. Guilty. Briggs was sentenced, not just for what he did, but for what the system let him become. With new power, Jamal rewrote department policy. Body cams became mandatory. Complaint data made public. Civilian review boards established. But it wasn't just rules. It was the culture. He hired prosecutors from Eastbrook. He launched a program to expunge juvenile records from biased policing. Justice, not punishment, became the mission, and the old guard hated it. At a school assembly, a boy raised his hand. He wore the same kind of hoodie Jamal wore the night he was arrested. "Sir," the boy asked, "do you hate the cops now?" Jamal smiled. "I hate what silence allows," he said. "I hate what injustice defends." Then he looked at the auditorium. "But I believe we can build something better if we never stop demanding it." The boy nodded, and the future nodded with him. Word of Jamal's reforms spread, so did resistance. State lawmakers quietly proposed bills to limit prosecutorial discretion. A lobbyist visited his office. "Dial it back," she warned, "or your funding disappears." Jamal didn't flinch. He released a press statement instead. "If fighting injustice means losing funding, then what are we even funding?" An anonymous source sent Jamal a flash drive. The video showed a police lieutenant in a closed-door meeting, discussing how to neutralize the DA. One officer joked about digging into Jamal's past. Another mentioned planting narratives. It was surveillance from inside the department. Now Jamal had proof. Corruption wasn't just history. It was active, coordinated, and close. Judge Everett Langston had presided over thousands of cases, many involving black teens. He'd always sided with officers. Always. Until one day he didn't. During a suppression hearing, he stunned the court. The officers violated constitutional rights, he ruled. Jamal was stunned. Later, Langston called him privately. "I was wrong for years. I want to make it right before I retire." Some ghosts chose redemption. Jamal took a risk. He brought a secret grand jury investigation against the Police Oversight Board itself. The board, meant to hold officers accountable, was protecting them instead. Through leaked emails and private testimony, he exposed their betrayals. The board chair resigned. 2 members were indicted. It was a gamble, but it paid off. Corruption was bleeding from the cracks. A former officer who once worked with Briggs died. He was denied an honor guard. No folded flag. No eulogy from the chief. Why? Because his past was under investigation. At the funeral, his daughter confronted Jamal. "You ruined my father's legacy." Jamal replied, "No, he did that himself." Truth, like justice, doesn't wear a uniform. One case haunted Jamal. Tyrone Maxwell, shot at 17 during a routine stop. The records were missing. The body cam footage corrupted. But Jamal's new tech team recovered partial footage. It showed Maxwell surrendering. And then 3 shots, not fired in fear, fired in silence. Jamal filed new charges. It was years too late, but never too late for truth. A middle-aged officer named Torres asked to meet Jamal. In tears, he confessed to writing false reports, pressured by Briggs. He offered sworn testimony. "I was scared," he said, "but silence eats your soul." Jamal took his statement, and then asked something surprising. "Want to help rebuild this?" Torres nodded. One defection at a time, the wall was falling. The governor saw Jamal's growing influence and set a trap. She announced an emergency election bill that would shift DA oversight to the state. It was a veiled attack, a power grab dressed as accountability. Jamal fought back, spoke at town halls, mobilized thousands. The bill died on the floor, and a message was clear. People had his back now. Civil rights attorneys filed a federal class action lawsuit. Hundreds of families joined, all victims of racially biased policing in Jamal's city. The lead plaintiff? A mother whose son Briggs had arrested and mocked in court. National networks covered the case. And for the first time, the department was on trial, not just its officers. Jamal visited Eastbrook High, the same school he'd once been suspended from. This time, he stood on stage. Students listened with wide eyes as he told his story. "Justice isn't something you wait for," he said. "It's something you build." When he left, a girl whispered to a teacher, "I want to be a lawyer too." Hope was contagious. Briggs called from prison. Jamal debated answering. Then he did. "You're not who I thought you were," Briggs said. "I was wrong." Jamal stayed silent. Briggs asked, "Do you ever regret it?" Jamal replied, "I regret that I ever needed to do this, but I'll never regret doing it." Then he hung up. A key whistleblower scheduled to testify vanished before a major hearing. Her apartment empty, phone disconnected. No signs of forced entry. Some said she fled. Jamal wasn't convinced. He launched a missing persons investigation. This wasn't over, and someone wanted to make sure it never would be. A brown envelope landed on Jamal's desk. No return address. Inside, an internal memo showing high-level officials had known about Briggs' behavior for years. Named names, some still in office, some with powerful allies. Jamal had leverage now, and the next chapter of his mission would be explosive. An envelope came with no return address. Inside, a photo of Jamal's childhood home and a bullet. It was clear. He was being watched. His family at risk. Security increased. But Jamal refused to step back. Because justice wasn't just a career. It was survival. Jamal was invited to speak before Congress. His testimony exposed systemic failures, cover-ups, and complicity. He brought names, data, and faces. One senator leaned in and whispered, "You're not just a DA anymore. You're a movement." And that terrified the powerful. A private number lit up Jamal's phone. It was Congressman Darren Owens. "We need to talk. Off the record." Jamal met him in a quiet diner outside city limits. Owens leaned in. "There are sealed files from a Justice Department probe. Your city was red-flagged." He paused. "And you're on someone's radar now, not just locally." Jamal suddenly understood. This was bigger than any courtroom. Jamal requested the sealed federal report. It vanished before it could reach him. The courier claimed it was signed for, but Jamal never got it. Later, a clerk whispered, "It was intercepted by someone with Homeland Security clearance." Now federal forces were obstructing his investigation. Why? What did they need to hide? One name kept surfacing, General Howard Keene. He'd run domestic counterinsurgency operations after September 11th. His niece had once filed a complaint against Officer Briggs. It had disappeared. Jamal's team found it, buried under aliases. The Keene had protected Briggs. What else had he covered up? A retired NSA analyst reached out anonymously. He said he'd reviewed surveillance requests tied to Jamal's name. "You're not just being followed," he said. "You're being profiled." The analyst handed Jamal an encrypted hard drive. It contained data suggesting police departments were part of a broader intelligence dragnet. Jamal's heart sank. He wasn't fighting a system. He was fighting a network. Jamal formally requested federal protection for his whistleblower. The Justice Department denied it. No reason, no explanation, just silence. He went to the media instead. CNN picked it up. Public outrage exploded. Suddenly, the DOJ reversed course. Because sometimes, public pressure speaks louder than protocol. A teenage coder named Rai reached out. He'd been watching Jamal's crusade and hacking quietly behind the scenes. "I found a hidden DOJ mirror server," he said. Rai offered to decrypt a drive connected to Briggs' sealed cases. What they uncovered, over 300 complaints marked as resolved without investigation. Some of the names were now dead. Among the decrypted files was one titled Project OATH. It wasn't public. It outlined a federal police coordination program post-Patriot Act. The aim, preempt domestic threats. Many targets were young, black activists. Jamal realized this wasn't policing. It was persecution wrapped in paperwork. Right after Project OATH leaked, a tabloid ran a hit piece. DA linked to gang member in prison letters. The story was false. The letter was fabricated. But the damage was real. Social media turned vicious. Jamal stood firm. "I fought lies since I was 16. I'm not folding now." U.S. Attorney General Monica Lang visited Jamal unannounced. She requested a private meeting. "You're making waves," she said. "Waves become storms." She offered him a seat on a national reform committee, but subtly hinted, "Tone it down, or you'll drown in red tape." Jamal smiled. "I don't surf waves. I break them." One night, Jamal's office security system triggered. Footage showed a masked intruder trying to access his private files. They didn't steal, they copied. His entire case archive was cloned to an external drive. It wasn't a robbery, it was intelligence gathering, by someone who wanted to stay ahead. A former FBI profiler named Cassandra Gray reached out. She'd reviewed the leaked cases and wanted in. I profiled domestic terror cells. This feels the same. She volunteered pro bono. Jamal hired her. Now, the team had brains, grit, and insider knowledge. Jamal testified before the Senate Committee on Oversight. He brought hard evidence. Briggs had been cleared via backchannel influence from a senator's aide. The room went silent. Senators shifted nervously. One even walked out. C-SPAN carried it live. By nightfall, his testimony had gone viral. America was watching. Governor Renee Tilton was named in the grand jury findings. She'd accepted campaign donations from a private prison contractor tied to Briggs' defense team. Jamal filed formal charges. The governor resigned within a week. And for the first time, someone at the top fell. Thousands gathered at the county courthouse, holding signs. We stand with Jamal. Justice can't be silenced. No more cover UPS. He stood on the courthouse steps. This movement wasn't born in office. It was born in pain, in courtrooms, in silence. And the crowd roared, "Not anymore." With overwhelming evidence, Jamal indicted 3 high-ranking law enforcement officials, including a former police chief. The charges: conspiracy, obstruction, and destruction of evidence. It was the largest police corruption indictment in state history. Reporters asked Jamal, "Are you satisfied now?" He said, "I'm just getting started." In a forgotten evidence box linked to one of Briggs' early victims, a technician found untested DNA. It wasn't the victims. It wasn't Briggs. It matched a retired federal marshal. He was tied to Project OATH. Suddenly, Jamal wasn't chasing just dirty cops. He was chasing ghosts in suits. The marshal had an apartment in a secure building under a fake name. Jamal's team entered legally with a court order. Inside, walls covered in case photos, including one of Jamal at 17. He'd been watched for years, pinned beneath his image. "Do not approach. Let him rise." Old emails between Briggs and the marshal revealed a sinister plan. They wanted Jamal to become a DA. They thought he'd play their game, protect the system. Instead, he tore it down. He was supposed to be a puppet. He became the executioner. Years ago, a young black woman named Marissa Kane was found dead. The file had been marked suicide. Jamal reopened it. Her journal detailed harassment by Briggs and a concealed pregnancy. Autopsy photos didn't match a suicide. It was murder staged, and they buried it deep. Marissa's case had once reached the grand jury, but the jurors were replaced last minute with police-connected civilians. All notes were destroyed. Jamal exposed the tampering. A judge ordered a historic reindictment. Marissa's mother sobbed in court. "I thought she was forgotten." A former crooked officer, now dying of cancer, came forward. He named names. He admitted to framing dozens of teens, mostly black boys. "I did it for the promotions, the politics, the power." He looked at Jamal. "I knew you'd come for us one day." Briggs, now under house arrest, made one last desperate move. He contacted a militia group to target Jamal. They intercepted the plan barely. Jamal's car was rigged with a GPS tracker. His bodyguard spotted it just in time. It was no longer courtroom games. It was survival. News leaked that Jamal's former mentor, Judge Brighton, had quashed over 50 brutality complaints during his tenure. Brighton had once encouraged Jamal to apply to law school. Now, Jamal ordered an ethics review. Brighton resigned under pressure. Another pillar fell. Briggs was brought back to court, this time in Shackles, the same courtroom where he laughed at Jamal 15 years ago. Now the audience laughed at him, but Jamal didn't smile. He only said, "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for justice." And the gavel fell. Jamal filed a RICO case normally used for mob bosses. He tied the police, contractors, and political donors into one criminal enterprise. Money laundering, false arrests, illegal surveillance. The case shook the state to its knees. It would take down dozens. A whistleblower in the Department of Corrections leaked internal emails. They confirmed what many feared: Briggs was part of a quota scheme. Police were pressured to arrest minorities to keep prisons full. The profit trail led to Wall Street investors. Jamal held a press conference. "We've uncovered legal slavery." 100,000 people marched in Washington wearing black suits and red tape across their mouths. Silent protest. Signs read, "Jamal for Justice." The president responded with a national police reform proposal. Jamal was invited to speak at the White House. He declined. "This isn't about politics. It's about truth." A retired FBI director came forward. He confirmed that Project OATH was abused by local authorities. He offered to testify. "I regret what I allowed," he said. His testimony helped secure federal oversight of the city's police force. Another domino fell. Jamal hosted a town hall with children whose parents were wrongfully convicted. Some had spent decades without mothers or fathers. One child asked, "Will we get them back?" Jamal knelt. "No, but I promise, we will make sure it never happens again." An old scanned PDF, misfiled for years, showed a typed suicide note by a man named Caleb Ross. Handwriting experts proved he didn't write it. Briggs had closed the case himself. It was murder, too. Another reopened trial. Another truth unearthed. Detective Ellis, once Briggs' right hand, flipped under pressure. He gave up locations of secret files, a burner phone, and names of judges on the take. He broke down sobbing. "I was a coward." Jamal wasn't. He entered witness protection, but his words cracked the case wide open. The RICO trial opened with over 30 defendants. Jamal stood alone as lead prosecutor. Across from him, an army of lawyers. But Jamal had something they didn't: truth. He presented each case like a puzzle. The jury leaned in. Justice leaned closer. The verdicts came down: guilty, guilty, guilty. On conspiracy, on obstruction, on corruption. Jamal didn't cheer. He simply exhaled. It had taken years. But the machine had finally been dismantled from the inside. The city held a ceremony. Families of the victims were invited. The police department unveiled a new badge design, one that included a broken chain. Jamal watched from the back row. One mother whispered, "You gave us our children back," and tears followed. The governor called, "We want you to run for state attorney general." Jamal thought of everything. His youth, his trials, the broken bodies he buried with truth. He looked at the courthouse that once humiliated him, then replied, "I'll run, but not for power, for justice." On his first day as state attorney general, Jamal visited his old juvenile holding cell. He walked inside, stood alone, and said out loud, "You were supposed to bury me." He paused. "But you built me instead." Then he walked out, free, powerful, and unbroken. Stay tuned for more chilling cases on Cold Case Chronicles, where the truth is always darker than fiction. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to Cold Case Chronicles. We dive deeper into the most chilling, unsolved mysteries, and together, we uncover what was left behind. Like, share, and leave a comment below. We want to hear your thoughts. Stay vigilant. Stay curious. The truth never rests.